Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this evening's master class on discovering the treasures of home ownership. My name is Helen Lurie, and I will be one of your moderators for this evening. Next slide, please. This evening's master class is going to be talking about establishing Homestead. As you can see on the screen, again, my name is Helen Lurie, and my other moderator for this evening you'll be hearing from shortly is Ms. Tanya Lowe. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I want to give you some tips for a successful webinar. I want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded. Each participant should remain muted, and we ask that you enter your questions in the chat box. We would love for it to be interactive, so go ahead and add your questions in the chat box at any time. We will have a Q&A session towards the end, and it will give you an opportunity to ask additional questions. Next slide, please. So at this moment, I would like for everyone to take your phone, hold your device over this QR code that's on your screen. If you open your camera to this QR code, your device will recognize it, and then tap the notification and it will take you to a link for a QR code. Now, where are you going? We wanted to start off with some pre-questions, just to kind of test your knowledge about what we're going to be discussing this evening. So take a few minutes, and if you can give me either a thumbs up or a done in the chat when you've completed your questions, that would be great. While you're doing that, I'm going to do the same. I pointed my device to the computer, tapping on the survey. It's only 5 questions. It shouldn't take long. So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to do. And I'm going to be monitoring the chat for done, thumbs up. Since I've completed it, I'm going to type in done. This is going to be a treat this evening. If you are joining us for the first time, I say welcome to you. If you have been a participant in one of our master classes in the past, I say welcome back. In a moment, I will be introducing our amazing speaker for this evening. All right, I'm getting some thumbs up. Done. Give you a couple of more minutes just to get a few more. And again, like I mentioned, our presentation, what we're looking for is interaction. So at any time, if you hear something of interest or may have a question on your mind at that time, just go ahead and type it in the chat. We don't want you to forget the question if you wait too long. I see some familiar names in our chat, and I say welcome back. Okay, so we're going to move on. Next slide, please. Please continue on with your questionnaires if you have not completed them as of yet. At this moment, I would like to introduce to everyone our amazing speaker for this evening. Our speaker is Michelle Franklin. Michelle Franklin is the Property Appraiser of St. Lucie County. She was elected Property Appraiser by the voters of St. Lucie County in 2016. Franklin's duty is to determine the value of all property within the county, including improved and vacant real property, tangible property, and agricultural property. She is also responsible for maintaining property ownership records and parcel ownership maps, as well as administering exemptions. Franklin earned a bachelor's degree from Indian River State College in organizational management. She holds a public human resources professional certificate from the Florida Public Human Resources Association and is a certified Florida Appraiser by the state of Florida. She currently serves as the board chair for the United Way of St. Lucie County and has a passion for supporting her community. And at this time, I introduce to you Michelle Franklin.
Good evening. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to join you. Hopefully everybody got through those quiz questions before that bio, because I think some of the answers were in there. Okay, so we'll dive right in. Please, any questions at all, I encourage you, Zoom is a wonderful tool, but it's always challenging as a speaker because you can't see people and you can't read the room, with the nods and the wait, what? So I encourage you to use that chat. Okay, moving on. We'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. As mentioned, I have 3 main responsibilities. One of those, and the one that is most familiar to most people, is to actually value property. So there are 67 different property appraisers in the state of Florida. We are all charged with the same duties, and that includes the valuation, as said, of real and tangible property. Real is what is attached to the ground, and that is your vacant land, your homes, and other commercial buildings and things of that nature. As you can see on this slide here, our real estate value is over $32 billion of just value. Just value, some can wonder, like, what just market? Market and just would be considered to be the same topic in most conversations. So when you hear me say just value, you might feel more comfortable with saying market value. We use those interchangeably here in the assessment office. So $32 billion in St. Lucie County overall. Tangible is $5.5 billion. And if you're thinking tangible, yeah, that is X-ray machines at your doctor's office. That may be trying to think of what else, a sign along 95 that has the billboards. That would also be our communication cables that are running, natural gas lines, and our biggest tangible personal property taxpayer in St. Lucie County on the island, if you can't guess, it's FP&L. So that, along with Tropicana, are our 2 big hitters here in St. Lucie County for tangible personal property. Going back to the value real quick, just value, as we said, also considered market value. Assessed value is something that we refer to often, and assessed value is your market or just value minus your Save Our Homes cap. We'll get into the Save Our Homes conversation a little bit later, but that's a part of it, exemptions. And then ultimately what you will see on your tax bill is taxable value. Taxable value is minus any Save Our Homes exemptions, benefits, and the Save Our Homes $50,000 exemption. So taxable is the amount you're going to pay taxes on. So there are 3 different values that we work with: market, assessed, and taxable. Any questions about those? Again, please feel free to chat. All right, we're going to move now into exemptions. If we can go to the next slide, please. I think we kind of went through that one. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Exemptions. So on our roll here in Florida, there are 128 different types of exemptions. There are ones that you're never going to dream of, that you're never going to think about because they're not relevant to most property owners. That can be governmental exemptions. It can be institutional exemptions. It can be educational exemptions. And then, of course, ones that you're familiar with, like homestead exemption or widower's exemption. We have over 217,000 parcels in 2020 had an exemption on them. That reduced our value by over $7 billion. That's nearly 20% of the value of property in St. Lucie County is exempt and off of the tax roll. I know, I see some eyes like, really? I mean, it's sizable. And of course, our job is to not only help people with, or organizations with applying for those exemptions, but ensuring that they actually qualify for those exemptions and then adding those exemptions to the tax roll. Okay, next slide. We're going to move into the popular homestead exemptions. Homestead is what most homeowners are familiar with. It is what every homeowner who is a Florida resident who claims that property as their primary residence can qualify for. So over 84,000 homeowners in 2020 received a homestead exemption on their property. Most of those received a $50,000 exemption, meaning if you have a $250,000 property, you have a $50,000 exemption. Your first year taxable value that you'd pay taxes on is $200,000. Now I say first year because homestead is two-part, and one part is your $50,000 exemption. The second part, which becomes more and more valuable over time in a rising real estate market, is the 3% cap that comes along with your homestead exemption. That means that your property value is capped and cannot increase more than 3% in any tax year. So if we were in a market like 2021, where property value and property, your house across the street, you're like, oh, they put it on the market for 200,000 and it sold for 205 in a week's time. And then down the street, they put their house on the market 3 months later and they put it on for 210 and it sold for 215 in a week. In a market like that, value may increase more than 3% within that 12-year period. So when that happens, as a homesteaded primary resident in Florida, you have cap protection and will not pay on that full increased property value. So very important, the 3% cap automatically goes on your property when you file for homestead and automatically happens after the first year. So you have to own the property for 1 year to have that base. And the second year and every year thereafter that you have homestead, you keep a cap. It is very important that your deed does not change to your property, meaning maybe you get married and you add a spouse, but don't notify us about the spouse. Then we may assume that this new person that comes onto the property, let's use Joe Smith. Joe Smith comes onto the property. You keep your name, Tanya Lowe, and we think, I don't know, maybe Joe Smith is her brother. So we don't know that you're a married couple necessarily because you got married, off on some wonderful cruise ship somewhere. I hope you enjoyed the wedding. And we don't know that that's your significant other. So we may remove inadvertently that cap protection because we're not aware that that's your spouse. So anytime there is a marriage, a divorce, if you want to add a child to your deed for protection, for estate planning, all of those things are possible and you may not lose your cap. But my point here is please call us. Help us understand what you're doing, and we're going to give you the information to help you get that done so you will not lose your exemption. Okay, if there's any questions about that, please, we're here for you. Call us and we'll walk you through that. But that kind of covers homestead exemptions. You can file, next slide, please, for exemptions online. PASLC.org is the site here in St. Lucie County. Right from the homepage there on the lower left of the screen, on your screen here, you can see that it says file for exemptions. It's a very easy process. If you can enter your name and hit next, enter your birth date and hit next, you can do it online and you can do it in 15 minutes or less. So don't be scared by it. If there's any challenges or questions, by all means, call us. We'll help walk you through it. Most property appraisers throughout the state of Florida are offering this online service. Not all, but many are. So please take advantage of that if you're ready to file for homestead, or if you know someone who purchased a home. please remind them, did you get your homestead exemption? You can file online 24/7. All right. Is there a way to search for a site like this in different states? So in different states, they may have different names. In Florida, we're called property appraisers. Throughout the country, they may be called tax assessors, some kind of form of property assessor or something like that. Usually will get you there. If you, some have what's called a board of equalization. There's different terms, but I think if you kind of start Googling, you'll probably be able to get there when you identify what state you're in. And it's generally at a county level. So if that helps you search the county that you're in, and then tax assessor or property taxes or something like that. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Thank you for the question, by the way. We're moving on to buyer beware. So if you are looking to purchase a property, and I'm kind of going to stay focused here in St. Lucie County because, you know, that's my neighborhood here. So if there's a questions that I can help make it, you know, expand it to other counties, states, please, I'll try. Please ask the question. But here in St. Lucie County, what I'm going to encourage everybody, and really throughout the state of Florida, to be very cautious because of those exemptions in Florida. We're a different animal here when it comes to purchasing a property. So it's important to thoroughly research, and I'll give a shout out here to all my real estate professionals that are out there. This is why you use a real estate professional. You definitely want to make sure that you have somebody who's kind of navigated the system working with you and for you. So I did see that question. How quickly can you apply? I'm actually going to touch on that in just 1 second. So stay with me on that question. Remind me if I skip over it. But while we're here, buyer beware. You definitely want to check for any permitting alterations. So maybe they added, the screen room was there and they actually turned that into a den. You want to make sure that it was properly permitted within the municipality that the property lies. From our property record card, you can go under permits on that top side, you know, top bar there of the different color blue as you're looking at your picture here on your screen. And you will see permits. You can see everything that was permitted. We're going to take you directly to the source of Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce. The village of St. Lucie doesn't have them quite as, they're not, the technology is not quite there yet with them. They're a smaller entity, but you can confirm what has been permitted. That is very important because later you don't want somebody knocking on your door saying you have a violation because that's not properly permitted. That can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you want to double check your permitted alterations and confirm that there are not any. You want to know about the zoning of the property, especially if you plan to maybe run an e-commerce out of your house. Are there going to be any challenges with that? Maybe you're going to run a nonprofit out of your home, a daycare, who knows? So you want to confirm your plans and what is legally permissible on that property. You want to confirm about code restrictions, and near and dearest to my heart is you want to know about your tax liability. So as you can see on the screen, there is a large blue box, and it says in that blue box, property, and forgive me, I don't remember the exact verbiage, and I'm not sure I can read that because I'm over 40 and need glasses, but property taxes are subject to change upon change of ownership. We try to make that as highlighted. If I could make it neon flashing at people, I would, because in the state of Florida, going back to that 3% cap, that 3% cap could be in place for several years. And that means the property taxes that the prior owner paid can be thousands of dollars difference than what you will pay when you purchase this property. So you want to properly estimate taxes. To do so in St. Lucie County, again, on the top where that blue bar is, you're going to click on Tax Estimator. When you click on that tax estimator, it's going to give you an estimate for that particular home that you're looking up. And you're going to be able to pop in there, yes, homesteaded, or maybe you're not homesteaded. Maybe you're in New York right now and you're buying, you're not moving to Florida full-time until 2 years from now, but you found a deal, you found the wonderful place you want to live in, and so you're going to buy the property. So you can properly estimate what that tax liability is going to be by looking at the record card and clicking tax estimator from the property record card. You can also see what jurisdiction that property is in, as in the city of Port St. Lucie, city of Fort Pierce, unincorporated St. Lucie County, or the village. You can also see the zoning. So that kind of covers that. Next page, next slide, we're going to talk about estimating taxes by value. Maybe you don't know which house it's going to be yet, but you know your budget. I know that I'm looking for a property that's around $150,000. I'm moving into this starter home. That's about what I can afford. As I start thinking through that, what kind of liability would I have? Well, I'm not going to make you search through the whole site to find a property that has that value out of the 167,000 properties that we have in St. Lucie County. You're going to go right from the homepage to estimate taxes. So from the homepage, not from the property record card that we were just on, you can put in a value, 150,000. I know I'm going to be in the city of Port St. Lucie, and I know I am or am not going to have an exemption, and we will give you a rough estimate of what that tax liability would be. So there are two different ways to estimate what taxes are. If you're not in Florida, I still encourage you to reach out to your property assessor, appraiser, tax collector, whoever it is that falls under in your jurisdiction, to confirm the tax liability. Because throughout the United States, you're going to have property taxes. They may or may not change annually. In Florida, our property taxes, we reevaluate property each and every January 1. We base that value on 100% of the fair market value. So many states do not perform in that manner. Some states reevaluate every 5 years, every 3 years. Some states do it when there's a sale. Some states do it at 50% of the value. Florida is 100% fair market value state, meaning if you buy a home for $200,000, you likely will be paying taxes on $200,000 minus your exemptions. So while we're on exemptions, again, going back to the question, and I'm sorry, I'm going to pull up my chat here. Bear with me. How soon after a new purchase should one apply for Homestead? Personally, in St. Lucie County, we are working almost around the clock to transfer deeds from the clerk's office information into our system. What I encourage people is move in, paint your home, get new carpet, buy a new sofa, whatever those few things, right? When you get that home, you've got something you want to do to it. Get that done and then mark your calendar. And as soon as those things are finished, and if you're like my husband and you're never going to finish them, just mark your calendar for 2 weeks. Generally within 2 weeks, we are going to transfer your deed. It's going to be in the system under your name. And then you can easily file online for Homestead for your primary residence. So let's just play this out and say, but do I have to live there 6 months in a day? You do not. If this is your home and your primary residence and you're going to get your driver's license from this address, this is where you're filing your next tax return from. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you live there for 2 days a year or 360 days a year. You can receive and qualify for a homestead exemption, and you should file for that right away because you don't want to forget. March 1 is the deadline each and every year. You have to own and occupy by January 1, and then you have to file by March 1. But most property appraiser offices, definitely here in St. Lucie County, we take applications throughout the year. I don't want you to forget. I don't want it to be out there like, yeah, I need to do that. I'm going to go down to a government building. I'm going to wait in line. It's going to take all day. Definitely not here in St. Lucie County. You can hop online. You can complete the whole thing online. If you say, no, I want a face-to-face. I'm not going to give you my birth date over this computer. I am coming to see you. That's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to see your smiling face. And we're going to make an appointment for you. I like to call it our Disney Fast Pass. You're going to come in, you're going to sit right down with a professional, and you're going to be out of here in definitely less than 30 minutes, probably in less than 20 minutes. So file basically right away. Usually 2 to 3 weeks is the sweet spot. I usually tell people, you know, if you close on the 13th of March, make sure you get it done by the 13th of April. Within 2 months in St. Lucie County, I'm probably going to mail you a letter and I'm going to say, congratulations on your new home. Don't forget to file for Homestead. Because part of my job, I feel, is to make sure that each and every homeowner that is entitled to an exemption receives that exemption. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you didn't even know what an exemption means, I want to give you that information. I want to make sure you get that exemption. Generally speaking, in St. Lucie County, a homestead exemption, just the $50,000 exemption, is going to save you in the neighborhood of $800 to $1,000. So that's real money. And that's just the first year. Remember, every year thereafter, it becomes more valuable and saves you more money. So I want you to file for that homestead. I want you to make sure that every friend that you know that buys a property, you say, but did you file for that exemption? So please help me out with that. All right, moving on to our next slide. We've talked about value. We talked about exemptions. And one of the most interesting things, because I'm a geek on some data, is to say, where is everybody coming from? Are you like me? Are you driving on the streets and you're like, are there way more people on these streets today or what? Now, I can't blame them because our weather is, especially right now, perfect. Definitely better than it was for everybody up north for the last how many months. And getting outside, fresh air and sunshine, who doesn't want to be here? I get it, but I'm curious to know where they're coming from. And when people used to come in to file more so than being online, I was always out there asking them, how'd you get to St. Lucie County? Where'd you come from? Do you have a family here? Do you have a job? What's going on? So now that more and more people file online, I don't get that interaction. So I started talking to my GIS gentleman the other day, my professional here in the office, and I'm like, I miss it. I don't know where everybody's coming from. How can we find this out? I want to know this data. And he said, well, let's see, what can we do? When they come in to file for Homestead or when they file online, they provide us their previous address. That's important for 2 reasons. Number one, we want to know where you come from. But number 2, it's important because if you're within the state of Florida, there's actually portability. There's a tax savings that you can bring from your current Florida property to the new Florida property. That's a whole nother animal. And I would love to talk to anybody who's interested in learning more about portability and explain how it works. But it's very unique to each and every homeowner. So in general terms, you take your tax savings from one property and you bring it to another property anywhere in the state of Florida within 2 years. So you can miss 2 January 1s. You can sell and rent for a year. You can sell and go travel for a year. You can do whatever your heart desires. Maybe you're building and you live with family for a year. You can miss 2 January 1s. Anytime within that period, you take your tax savings from one property to another. So I said, well, this should be easy. We should know where everybody comes from within Florida, right? He said, well, we have their previous address when they're filing for Homestead. So as long as they're planning to make this their permanent residence, they didn't just buy an investment property, we know where they came from. So that's where you can find on our website a mapping layer. For those of you that are familiar with the website, you go to map, and then you're going to go to layers up in the right corner, and then you're going to go to map layers. Forgive me, I know that could be better, but map layers. And under that, you can see a ton of layers, not only this where new homeowners are coming from, but what school zone a property is in, flood zones, school districts, zonings, all kinds of layers that you can totally enjoy and to your heart's content. But this one is an interactive layer where you can hone in on just the state of Florida to see how many residents, how many properties came from Broward, Palm Beach, any of you real estate professionals, insurance agents, you want to know where your next customer is coming from. This is your map. This is going to tell you that we had 2 people come from Hawaii last year, 2 people from Alaska, if I remember correctly, and hundreds from Martin County, Broward, Palm Beach, all of that. So if I was going to do some direct mail and targeting, I would take a look at this layer, and then I would hop on the phone with our IT department and say, walk me through one time how to create a mailing list, because it's very easy to create mailing lists that will populate Avery labels for you that you could pop on a postcard or a letter and mail off to certain areas, whether that if within St. Lucie County. So if you have more questions about that, happy to walk you through that. Like I said, give us a call. We're here to assist. Okay, so that covers our mapping layers, which brings us to really our third responsibility. Value was 1, exemptions was 2, and mapping is our third responsibility. So mapping in St. Lucie County, we talked about the deed transfers. In a perfect world, everybody would have bought a standard Port St. Lucie lot from section 21, block 4, lot 2. That's easy, right? Move that from Michelle's name to Helen's name. I'm done. The problem is, and it's not a problem for us because we get it done, but where this can get a little interesting is we processed over 21,000 deeds in 2020. I actually have 3 professionals that are working at it. They do a phenomenal job. We actually received 100% approval from the Department of Revenue, because every single sale that's transferred, we have to code. Was it an arm's length transaction? Or was it maybe a Michelle sold to her mom and dad, a family transaction? So we have to determine if it's an arm's length transaction and code it appropriately. My professionals, just outstanding attention to detail. They're phenomenal ladies. And they processed, like I said, over 21,000 of those in 2020. Of those 20,000 plus deeds, 1,178 of those had to go to the mapping department. I have one mapper, one master mapper. It's a dying breed cadastralist. And that one mapper handled over 1,000 different confirming that the deed was actually selling the exact same property that was already defined, or she mapped a new property. Basically, what I'm saying here is if you had lots 3 and 4 together, you live on lot 3, you decided you're going to sell lot 4 to somebody else. When you do that at the closing table, our mapper has to actually create a new lot. Super easy in the, like I said, in the city of Port St. Lucie, where it's lot block section, that's easier. When you get out west of town and you're dealing with a meets and bounds legal description, those get a little interesting and they take a little bit more time to go through. Now, while my mapper is also working on those over 1,000 deeds that she's mapping a new parcel for, she's also working with plats. So this is where large tracts of land are now becoming a residential lot or a smaller lot. Some tracts are actually done into 5-acre lots, some into 3/4 acres. Depends on where they are and what the developer's goal is. Last year, 2020 in St. Lucie County, we had 61 plats that our mapper worked. And of those 61 plats, that meant there were over 2,400 parcels created. So if you're in St. Lucie County, I'm going to give you an area where this is going to be real easy to identify. Tradition. Anybody who's driven in Tradition, a year ago, my mapper was plotting out those spaces that you are now seeing being cleared and new homes going up. So that is a real responsibility to track and keep up with. All right, I think we're on to our final slide, which just reminds you about following us on social media. If you're looking for tips about, anything to do with property tax assessment, reminders for important tidbits, or we share articles on our Twitter sometimes about home ownership. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube has some real videos about this is how you file for homestead, this is how you do this, and we would love to create more. We're working on some more content. Things will be coming soon with that. And I would love to hear your ideas. If you used our website or if you have suggestions on videos, please reach out. It's our pleasure to serve you. We look forward to doing that. We're here to serve you. So I hope you'll contact us if we can be of assistance at all. With that, I think I've kind of gone through the basics. I would be happy to slide into some real exemption conversation or portability or anything else. I see a question here. So can you give us an idea on how much exemption one would receive for a senior exemption or being a widow? Widowers is really a minimal exemption. It is a $500 off of the value. So in relation to homestead, you're getting $50,000 off of your assessed value. Widowers, you're getting $500. So in real terms in St. Lucie County, that means lunch. It's going to save you $12 to $15. It's really depressing. I'm sorry. I wish it was more. Legislators determined that. We as property appraisers have gone to them and said, listen, $500 is, lunch. Try to get it increased to at least 5,000 or something. It does not appear because of the financial impact that that's going to happen. However, what I encourage anyone who may be eligible for any exemption, apply for it. Even if it's $12, it's $12 every year. And if somehow the legislators change it one year, you would automatically then get the larger amount. You'd be right on record and you would get it. You wouldn't have to file. You wouldn't have to worry about it. So I encourage you, if you're eligible, file. Senior exemption can be a little more valuable. It is off the county portion of the tax bill only. My caution with senior exemption is funny. I was sharing with the ladies beforehand that I was actually sending some birthday cards to those that turned 65. The thing about the senior exemption is you don't want to qualify. If you qualify for a senior exemption, it is not only age-based, based on January 1 date, your age on January 1, but it's also income-based. So this year it is a total household income of $31,000 or less. Generally, that excludes Social Security. So it will save a couple $100 each and every year. But there's a very limited group that receives that exemption. And that's what I tell people is really, again, congratulations if you don't, because you want an annual income that's higher than that. But if you're in that, if you know somebody that's in that, apply. We're going to do everything we can. People sometimes ask, how do we prove the income? We have a sworn statement. If you don't file a tax return, that you sign, that's the IRS says you don't file a tax return. If you do file a tax return, then we look at the last tax return and look at your total income there. Again, 31,000 in 2021, excluding, generally speaking, excluding Social Security. For new homeowners, once they file for an exemption, do they have to file? Great question. Thank you for that question. Once you receive a homestead, you do not need to refile. It's kind of one and done. Now with that, let me add that each and every year you receive a trim notice. Most people are going to open that notice in mid-August, and it is a whole 2 pages of columns and numbers, and they look at it and it says, not a bill, do not pay. And they're like, great, I'm going to file it. If you're like me, there's a spot on the desk for filing paperwork till it becomes too much, and then you actually have to do something with it. Your trim notice has a lot of information. I'm going to urge you to look at 2 important pieces of information on there. Number one is the value, what we say is the market value of your property, remembering that we valued that property on January 1 of that year. Confirm that you agree with that value. If that value says 200,000 and you say, funny, I had it on the market for 200,000 and I couldn't sell it, or there's no way it's 200,000 because we had a water pipe burst and we don't even have drywall right now, or whatever it is. Whatever reason there is, you call us and say, listen, I don't agree with 200,000. We're going to talk about it. We're going to learn information. I can promise you that I know 167,000 properties in St. Lucie County better than you, but you know your property better than me. So I look at a big picture. We're doing mass appraisal. We're looking at every property in St. Lucie County. You're in your neighborhood. You're pulling in your driveway. You're walking in your house each and every day. You know your house. So always, always, always double check that value. If you don't agree with it, you have 25 days to go through a process, to have a conversation with us and to have the ability to dispute that. If you wait 30 days, your legal right is gone. Now, with that being said, if there's ever a mistake, we can correct mistakes within a time period. So even though it's a little more than 30 days, again, please just open the envelope, look at your notice, double check the value. Second up is the exemption. You don't have to file again, but remember, life happens. Maybe you got married, maybe unfortunately somebody passed away. Maybe who knows what happened. Maybe your bank did some kind of refinance and somehow they filed a new deed when they did it because of some reason. Maybe you put your property into a trust. Many different reasons can come about and your exemption falls off. So if you look and you see that you have an exemption, great, we're done. I have had people in front of me that had an exemption for 10 years. It fell off because they put their property into a trust. They never thought about contacting us. They didn't open a trim notice. They didn't open a letter that we mailed to them or a postcard. We try all kinds of forms of communication and email going out to you if we have an email address on file. They ignored all that because they didn't know, they didn't understand. They thought they already had a homestead. And they ended up losing that 3% cap protection, which cost them thousands of dollars. And once that cap is gone, beyond that trim time, when I can fix it, it's gone. So if you wait till a November tax bill, you're late. Some people wait until January. I don't know why y'all like to open mail from the bank and pay attention to what the bank sends you. So when the bank sends and says, hey, we're changing your mortgage and it jumps by $500, all of a sudden people are like, wait, why? Well, because your taxes increased. Wait, no, they can't. I have Homestead. No, actually, you don't have Homestead. So they work through this whole week trauma and then they call me. And now we're into January, February of the next year. I can't do anything. So please open that trim notice. Please review. If you don't review anything else, 2 things, value, and that your exemption is in place. That will serve you well each and every year. But generally speaking, no, once you have a homestead, you're set. But you always want to read the pamphlet because maybe there's new exemptions. Senior exemption was added. Ooh, I'm going to say a number and it's going to be wrong, but I'm going to say it was 16 years ago. Senior exemption came out of nowhere. They passed it and all of a sudden, hey, there's a new exemption we could qualify for. So you want to make sure that you're staying in tune with, the ear to the ground in property tax assessment. I know it's real exciting, but you want to, somehow keep a little bit in tune. Once a year trim time is perfect, just to make sure that there's nothing new, nothing you need to apply for, nothing that's going to help you reduce your property tax assessment. Because who wants to pay property taxes, right? Nobody wants to pay. I understand that. We just want it to be fair and equitable for all. All right. Do I have any other questions? How am I doing on time?
I think we are where we need to be on time, unless there's any last minute questions.
Well, I want to take an opportunity to say thank you again. It's a true honor to join you. And again, here in St. Lucie County or wherever you are, please call us. It's our pleasure to assist you. We'll walk you through anything that we can on our side, or we're going to help point you in the right direction to get you the answers.
Okay, thank you so much, Michelle Franklin, for joining us this evening and for sharing this valuable information. One of the main takeaways for me is making certain that we contact the property appraiser's office if there is a name change to that deed. That's really important. So thank you so much for this valuable information. We do have at least one of our new home buyers on the line. So I'm pretty sure that was some really good information for him as well to learn.
Congratulations to that new home buyer.
Yes, so that's exciting. Thank you once again. I spend a lot of time on the Property Appraiser site, so I'm very familiar with it, but I will be using it even more now. I do hope that for our participants this evening that you have found this information to be very helpful. As we've gone through our discovering the treasures of homeownership, we have talked about taking control of your credit. We've talked about budgeting during a crisis. We've also had an opportunity to talk about the different types of mortgage lending that's available to us. And last week, we talked about how to find the right realtor. And once you close on that home, now you know 2 weeks after you've painted the house, unpack some boxes, got some little things done, make certain that you file for your homestead exemption. Next week, we're going to talk about wills, trust, and estate planning. We're going to now move into our session about estate planning. So join us next Thursday, April 29th, 2021 at 7 p.m., where we're going to, again, talk about wills, trust, estate planning. And then on May 6th, we're going to talk about leaving a legacy. So we have much more information to share with you. We have quite a few professionals right here in our area to present information like what you heard this evening and what you've heard in our previous webinars. Next slide. Please take a moment to once again use our QR code to complete the survey, the webinar evaluation for this program this evening. You can hold your camera up to the QR code on your screen and then click on the link that populates. And please take a moment to share with us how we can continue to bring you quality programs here on the Treasure Coast. So I'll give you a moment to please take a picture of that QR code and complete that survey. We do have a question in the chat. We have the previous webinars we record all of our webinars and they are available on our YouTube channel. They will also be available on our website as well. Next slide. The slide before you is the slide that shows you our program team. It includes the list of those of us who have worked together and we've collaborated to bring you these programs here on the Treasure Coast. So I'll give you a moment to read through that. And if you want, if you have your cell phone with you, please take a picture. Next slide. You can contact us if you have any questions, especially if you want to learn more about our recorded webinars, our previous webinars. We can also email you a copy of the webinar as well. Our email address is tclinksnts@gmail.com. Our website address is treasurecoastlinksinc.org. Next slide. Thank you so much again for joining us this evening. Thank you, Michelle Franklin. We appreciate all the work that you do in our community. And to the rest of the team, we want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about wills, trust, and estate planning. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.